Before the wheel was ever invented, farmers had a hard job. You see, their capacity to make more money was limited to their ability to carry it. So let's talk about a farmer, for example. Let's call him John. John the farmer. On his journey, he comes from his land, and he's picking all the food that he wants to sell in the market. And the market is a little far away. You see, he has to put all the foods and vegetables in his hand. He has come of bags that he has crafted. His wife has crafted for him, and he carries all of these things. And he's going as quickly as possible to the market. He gives himself a few hours to get there, just to give him some time to rest in between. And he's all this time, he's thinking to himself, man, I wish there was a better way. I wish there was an easier way. I'm so tired where the bags are like hanging on to my shoulders and my arms. They're starting to make dents and they're very painful. Not to mention the fruits and vegetables, food that he's about to sell, he's carrying in his hands. And every time one slips through his fingers, they hit the floor. And it's way easier for him to let it fall versus to go back and pick it up. He's positioned to get there. That's all he's focused on. And it feels like an exhausting task. Now, when he finally gets there, he looks back and he thinks about his journey there. He had to go through valleys where he had to dip through and carry the weight of all of these bags to his destination. Not to mention the hills that he had to climb in order to get to this market. But he finally got there. And he looks over and he sees other people, other vendors that are setting up their booths with lots of fruits and vegetables and a lot of things that actually are kind of mediocre to the quality that he's been able to harvest. But he lays his items out anyway, and he positions to sell. And people come and they get all of what he has there quickly before they even get a chance to look at his competitors and what they have. Now, after the end of the market, he's connecting with his peers and associates. He's talking to the vendors and the owner of the market who puts the entire event together, and just connecting with them to find out what he should sell next time. Well, he gets his laundry list and it's the same exact fruits and vegetables he brought last time. And so much so that other people noticed and said, maybe I should sell something else. Now, as they were packing up their specific spots, he noticed that there was someone that was stationed right next to him that had a container with a wheel. He didn't know first what the container was, but he had recognized the wheel because there were conversations about this wheel thing that moves so easily and so frictionless. But he had never seen the two put together before. Now, this was the first time he ever saw a wheelbarrow, and he got excited. On his way back to his farm, he thought about how he could afford this wheelbarrow. He thought, where can I get a wheelbarrow? Maybe I have to make my own. And he was studying all of the increments and measurements that he had envisioned when he saw it. Finally gets home and he sits down at the dinner table with his family and he's telling him about this wheel. And he's saying that so many people love our fruits and vegetables, and we have more than enough to sell even more than we already sell. If it was just for the vehicle, if we had a vehicle that didn't rely on my shoulders, on my ability to carry them, I know that not only I can get there earlier so that I can get more people to buy, but I would have more energy to make the journey. So his wife and him talked and thought about it. And it just so happened his neighbor came by and had a wheel. He said, John, I got a wheel. Look at it. Now, John thought, oh, I have a bucket. Now, I don't have a fancy wheelbarrow like the guy that was stationed next to me, but I do have a bucket. Hey, what do you think, neighbor? What if we created our own wheelbarrow? His neighbor was excited. He thought, this is a great idea. And in fact, I think I want to make some adjustments to how it works. So they added handles and they actually, John had a bigger container than the gentleman that was at the market. So he was able to make a bigger wheelbarrow. In fact, it was larger than himself. But then he thought, well, how am I going to carry this? How am I going to push this? So his neighbor said, you know what? I'm going to help you push it all the way to the market and back because I really want to see how people react to my new wheelbarrow. So John and him filled the wheelbarrow with fruits and vegetables more than they ever thought that they could ever sell in one time. It was so full that it overflowed. In fact, when they were pushing it up hills and down valleys, his neighbor had to go in front and make sure that it wasn't falling over. They were so excited. In fact, they got there so early that the passerbys were just getting there. The market was just getting set up. And so he was excited. He got a chance to meet all the people that were going to shop that market. So as he's setting up his station and he's getting excited to show off his wheelbarrow and he's feeling really, really excited, he realizes that he just did more with less effort. I share with you that story to specifically help you understand what leverage looks like. You see, comfort, comfort people believe requires, comfort people believe is something that's safe. And in fact, comfort is working against you. The law of inertia says that anything at rest stays at rest until it is impacted by an other object, something going against it to move it in a different direction. You see, John, he knew that he had to change something because what was comfortable for him wasn't getting him that far. It was limiting his ability to grow, to take care of his family, to expand his farm. But now that he had even more, he was able to go into a partnership with his neighbor and create something that was even better, more refined, and his unique perspective. They were able to reap the benefits. Now, John from that market, he sold out. In fact, people were so excited. There even more people showed up the following week and more the next week and the next week. And because of this, John built relationships with other farmers in his area to come and help him carry these loads there. So he was able to sell 10, 100 times more than where he was selling by himself when he was carrying the bags alone. You guys already know you want government contracts. You guys already know you want stability, predictability. You already know that. And I believe that many of you are just challenged with comfortability. Comfortability, and just because it's safe. It feels safe because you can predict it. You know, there's so many new things going on in my world. A lot of new things. And for every new thing, I had to really envision what that looked like. What's the outcome of me working so hard to make the decision? You see, the decision is the hardest part. Everything else is easier. It's the decision. You see, it's the decision for John to ask his neighbor. It was just that simple. Like, can you imagine this neighbor is so excited about the wheel? John could have easily thought, well, he probably wants to use it for something else. Or, I'm not going to burden him. It's his wheel. I don't want him to feel like I'm trying to use him and da 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 da. No, he went out and invited his neighbor to be in partnership with him. It's a very powerful thing to do in government contracts. When you're selling your services to public sector buyers, they're looking for experts. They're looking for Johns who specialize in the fruits and vegetables, right? They specialize in the skill sets and providing excellence above the rest. And it may feel like you're less than, right? You're carrying your bags in as other people are having like wheelbarrows and pulling in. But realize that it's not what how they got there, is how they deliver which matters most. And if you've already been running your business, you have an established business of services, clients, team, and you know that you want to get from, let's say, eight figures in your business to, let's say, 50 or 100 million from now for in 5 years. How is do you think that's possible if you don't leverage? You see, John knew that he couldn't carry any more bags. The thing that got you to the market the first time will need to be leveled up so that you can get to the next place, right? He was working with his own effort, and there's only so much that John can do. John can't he can't carry anymore. He's exhausted as it is. He could have asked his neighbor to carry more, but then that would have been a bigger burden and it wouldn't be as much as exciting. So, today I want to share with you positioning and three ways that you can position your services to win government contracts. These are proven ways that they're actually desirable ways that the buyers love to buy. And I'm sharing with you the top three. And there are many other ways to buy or to sell your services, but these are the most common and the most appreciated and valued ways to sell. The first way to sell is priming. It's when you're the prime contractor. So, priming means that you own the relationship. You see, John owned the relationship with the market. His neighbor just provided the equipment to help build the wheelbarrow. As a prime, you're building the relationship. You have the relationship. There is a direct connection to the problem and the solution. Most businesses that are established, that have past performance, like capabilities of delivering this service, even if you've never delivered it to a government buyer before, it is highly valued. And oftentimes, positioning as a prime is the right way to go, unless the opportunity is your scope of work or your services is a fraction of the bigger project. Let me give you an example. If you are a painting contractor, oftentimes that is within the divisions of general contracting. So if you're not a GC, or you're specialized in construction and you only do painting, then you would be considered a subcontractor to a GC. If you have a disposal company, let's say you have a tons of like you know trash cans and trash bins, and the word is escaping me, and you do commercial sites. You have big trash cans, trash bins for commercial sites. The name is escaping. Dumpsters. Thank you. And so if you have dumpsters and that's what you want to offer to government contractors or buyers, then you'd be under a prime. Sometimes, depending on the buyer, there may be opportunities where you become the prime. It just depends on who you sell. See, this is why it's not just cookie cutter to just go out and find a contract that you sell, that you can bid on, and you exclude everything other than what you provide, because that would be non compliant unless they say just respond on your services. So, what you want to do is understand how they buy. That's why step number two, target, comes before strategizing or positioning. So we talked about priming. Now let's talk about subcontracting. Subcontracting is the neighbor. See, John is the prime. So he brings in his neighbor as a subcontractor to help him build the product, right? Or help him get to the destination, help him put out the fruits and vegetables, and help him strategize home, right? So these are all things that a partner would do. And depending on the work, so depending on the skill sets or the quantity of capabilities that are required to deliver the work depends on that relationship. Oftentimes, a subcontractor is great at under, say, like 30% of the work, 40% of the work. And, anything more than that, it gets a gray area in terms of subcontracting. However, if you're an engineer, let's say you're a design engineer and you work with architects to deliver design and engineering or A&E services, well, oftentimes that is a partnership and it's considered teaming. However, contractually, you are a subcontractor. So, depending on what services you provide and how that buyer buys, will impact which positioning is best for the opportunity. I teach about GovCon stacking. And the reason why is because it's really exciting. It's unlocking so many more opportunities just when you allow yourself the chance to bid with other contractors. And subcontracting could be for any business. It doesn't matter how big your company is or how small your company is. You could be a subcontractor. Formerly, I worked for a big engineering firm that did subcontracting a lot, and they are an international engineering firm. They were doing subcontracting. So it doesn't matter the size, it's about the scope. It's about the scope of work that's in the opportunity. As I've shared before, there are hundreds of thousands of opportunities that are awarded every year. Another way of saying opportunity is contract. And so, if you're seeing all of these opportunities and only a few of them are prime, then potentially there is an even bigger bucket of subcontracting opportunities. That's why I really recommend that when you're in and you're building your footing in the public sector, that you build relationships with other business owners that do what you do. People say, why would you do that? 100% I'd do it because you never know when the opportunity will arise, when it makes sense for the two of you to partner. Maybe you're great at painting interior walls, and that partner is great at painting exterior walls. And together, you can do an entire building. That's how we have to think about it. It's not competition, it's partnership. You might think to yourself, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to reach out to them. What if they steal our whatevers? Or, I mean, this is why your value, your value proposition, and your differentiators are key. There's things that they cannot take from you. This is so unique. Like it's the story of your brand. No one can say that about themselves, right? There's something unique. Now, but there's something unique about what makes them stand out and what's something unique about what makes you stand out. And together, you provide a perfect solution the buyer goes crazy over. Now, the third way I'm going to share with you to position to win would be joint ventures. This is more of an advanced move, and it's not just a verbal agreement. This has to be a legal, contractual entity, separate entity that would have to be registered separately in order to bid that contract. However, you keep your brand identity. You inform the buyer that you created a partnership on behalf of them, like for them. Super huge, but it requires a lot of strategic planning. This is not something you want to do in private and secret. You want to do it with a lot of data from the buyer that this is a good idea because it could be something that shoots you in the foot if you don't do it properly. You could think, well, I can go ahead and just create a joint venture and put myself out there and everything will be gravy. Right? Like they'll just love it when they see it, they'll be surprised and everything. we want to make sure that you've done work, you both have done work with that specific buyer before several times over, and there's predictability and consistency and the feedback that you got from that buyer. That's essential. Like, it's essential for joint ventures, because if you go in cold with a joint venture, you could be spending thousands of dollars and not get anywhere. Oftentimes, I see successful JVs when there's a 8, 9-figure contract, right? It's a larger term contract, maybe over 5 or 7 years, sometimes longer, and it's a shared vision. Your business is in alignment with the vision for this project's outcome and your partner's vision as well. So it's not about owning the whole thing. It's about, okay, I want to be a part of this big vision. And I know what our capabilities are. I'm not really looking to grow this division of our company. Let's just go ahead and stabilize, because there's, strategically more opportunities with that client. This is how you create that relationship, that long-term relationship with a buyer. Not thinking just about the contract today, but thinking about the long-term relationship of that agency. So for today, they might have a small contract. Let's say, when I say small, I mean like, 250,000 contract, and it's over, 5 days or whatnot, to deliver. Now, in that contract, you might be like, yes, we want a contract. It's exciting. And then you go and you look somewhere else. The one thing that John did as a farmer is he went back to the same market. You always want to go back when you're winning. You want to build relationship. You want to see, are there other 250K contracts, or are there $2.5 million contracts or $25 million contracts that include our services? It's not just to the title and only your scope you're looking for, it's your services that you offer that you want to go into partnership with. And this opens up, just a boatload of opportunities for your business. So you're not just looking at one contract, you're looking at stability, predictability, and stacking the contracts accordingly. I teach about, in my proprietary system, the GovCon stacking method, how people can really start to simultaneously acquire contracts from agencies that buy what they sell, but they're in alignment to your vision, your business vision, so that you stay focused on the goals at hand, the things that you're trying to achieve overall in your business. And why is this so important? Because it comes down to resources and capabilities. You don't want to staff 100 people for a contract, and then the next contract is you only need 5 people. It's like, what happens to the other 95? And in integrity, you might be thinking, well, I want to grow to 100, right? And I want to consistently grow to 100. How do I do that? Well, it's through performance, and really, government contracts plays a huge part in building the stability strategically, because you might acquire a private sector contract that helps you grow, right? You get a private sector client. They get you at 10 people, then you get to 20, then you get to 30, then you get to 40, but there's no confirmation that that will be your future predictability with that client or any client. With government contracting, they're required to spend this money to help, circulate economy spending. And so why not just participate in that? If they're going to spend anyway, and it's going to be for your benefit, you might as well participate in that sequence and really start building strategic elevation and capabilities at the same time. I was having a conversation with a business owner yesterday, and he was asking me about this specifically. He said, well, what about, contracts? Like, how many contracts can I get? And I said, well, as many contracts as you're able to deliver on. And he said, wow, okay. So if I had a team of 10,000, I could get, and I said, yes, you can get as much as you can deliver on, right? These contracts are there for you. If you're just a one-man band, then just get contracts to be a right fit for your business today. If you're looking to acquire contracts, you're hiring right now and you're like, I need to get some contracts, start building, relationships now. Get familiar with the opportunities that will be bid when you're ready to bid, which I would recommend start bidding now so that you can get those iterations through. And then from there, once you have the team, then when you're positioning, you're going to look a lot stronger because you're not brand new and the expectation is clear. You have clarity in terms of when the contract will be advertised, when it will be awarded, and when you actually start doing the work. These are three different dates. So if you might hire a ton of people and say, okay, I'm going to go get contracts, you're doing it backwards. You're doing it backwards. You're going to spend a ton of operation costs. So instead, strategically align yourself to the opportunities, understand the value, understand the marketplace. This is why knowing who your competitors are is so powerful because you find out that they're not capable of bidding on this contract. Well, guess what? That diminishes your competition. And so it puts you in better favor of winning that contract. You wouldn't know this if you don't get started today. And this is the challenge that every business owner has. We all have it. The challenge is change. Ooh, it's like, I think it's worse than any curse word. It's like the worst profane is change. Nobody wants to change. Nobody wants to change, even though the situation that you're in, that we might be in, could be hurting us, could be hindering us. It could be a client who keeps, you know, breaking boundaries. It could be a team member who is underperforming. It could be a relationship, wherever that is, relationship that you're unable to, you don't feel comfortable speaking up and saying something about what makes you uncomfortable. And so, because of that, you just stay the same. You see, the fact that you've been looking at government contracts, you went through the process of getting registered on sam.gov, you got excited, and then you felt like that was the first step. Why isn't it easier? It's because you took the wrong first step. The right first step is getting excited about the value you already have. You see, John couldn't increase the amount of fruits and vegetables he would sell at the market until he confirmed that he had it to sell. If he didn't have more to sell, this story would not exist. The wheelbarrow store wouldn't exist. He would not have a overflow of fruits and vegetables to sell. There would not be a need to build a wheelbarrow. There would not be a need to change anything about his system. First, need to assess your assets. Are the skills, your capabilities, the value, the clients, the case studies, the performance, all of that stuff that you've done in your business? It's probably easier than you think. You probably think to yourself, oh my gosh, I have to set a time, an hour, Melinda, and do this, and oh my gosh, da, da, da. It's way easier than that. It's way easier than that. You got to go back to my video about this. It takes you 5 minutes. It's a quick report, whether it's a spreadsheet or QuickBooks or wherever you have where you get paid. And you just pull that. Your memory will kick in. And you'll know exactly. You'll just say, "Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. We did a lot of projects like A, and then we did a lot of projects like B, and then we did a lot of projects like C." And you start to understand, well, okay, so the majority of your revenue comes from selling what? Quantity wise and output. So quality wise, what is the quantifiable? What's the qualifiable of the flagship offer that you sell? This is how you stand out from everyone else that is selling the same thing. You see, John was selling fruits and vegetables. The guy next to him was selling fruits and vegetables. The guy next to him had a sexy, fancy wheelbarrow, but nobody wanted the guy next to him there for his fruits and vegetables. They wanted John's, even though he had a limited demand. He had a limited supply. So he increased the supply and demand increased because now people are like, oh my gosh, I have to go to this market and get John's fruits and vegetables because it's way better than everything else that's there. Oftentimes we look at the wheelbarrow and we think, oh, they have to be successful. So we're not going to even attempt it. We look at what it looks like from the outside and we don't pay attention to how the buyer reacts. The buyer is going to tell you whether or not it's going to work. If it's in demand in the private sector, it is 99% of the time in demand in the public sector. That's just what it is. So if you're a painter, 100% there's gazillions of contracts. If you're in construction, yes. Engineering, yes. If you're a consultant, if you're a coach, if you're a speaker, if you're in sales, if you just teach people to sell or you sell yourself, right? You sell your products and services, 100% they need you. Right, because they're talking about communication and persuasion and helping people understand transformation and identity. I mean, that's sales, right? So marketing, yes. Branding, yes. If you are you have a paid ads agency. Yes. If you have an AI agency, yes. If you are in cybersecurity or IT, a thousand gazillion percent yes. There are contracts for your business. You don't have to carry everything on your back. You can leverage what you have to make more. And oftentimes it's just in partnership with the buyer, partnership with other contractors, but there is partnership. And this is the uncomfortability you have to get over in order to win. That's just what it is. When you were starting in business, do you remember how uncomfortable it was to sell, to put out your price? You remember that? When you first put out your price, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I hope this is gonna be." I remember, oh my gosh, I remember my first $10,000 offer. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible." It was just anxiety for no reason. None reason. It was accepted because the value was clear. It was clear. And so that's what you're doing now. You're not starting over. You're leveraging what you already have and you know works. That's confidence, that's clarity, and that is contracts. And if you want to know exactly how to do this for your business, all you have to do is register for my upcoming virtual event called Real Business, Real Contracts, where I'm talking to real business owners, decision makers who are founders and acquirers running service-based businesses and want to see how can I leverage what I already have to make more money? How can I find the right partners? How can I find the right fit contracts? How can I position myself to win? How do I do it, Melinda? We're going to answer those questions for you in the event. Go to realbusinessrealcontracts.com to register for free and you'll experience this is going to be one of the best experiences all year. In fact, it's going to be the best because imagine imagine by the end of the year, you go to your holiday, meetings, right? I call them meetings, like the Thanksgiving dinner and the Christmas dinner, and you're seeing all of your friends and family, and they go, "How is your year?" And you get to tell them, "I leveraged. I am now where I wanted to be in 5 years this year, potentially." Potentially, you could say, I am halfway to my 5 year goal. Potentially, you could have that freedom, potentially have that clarity, potentially say to them, well, I hired strategically seasoned people. I positioned them above the team that I currently have because I love them to death. And I gave them the experience and the knowledge they needed to be great. And guess what? I didn't have to do it myself. They go, "What did you do?" And you said, I unlocked public sector contracts. I was able to acquire contracts, both state, local, federal, whatever you want. This gives you freedom. Not to mention, if you're a legacy builder, you are learning a skill that only 15% of the businesses registered in the United States acquire or access. That's something that you can pass on to your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids and your kids' 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 kids, right? It's something you can pass on to them and help them understand that no, you don't have to do the hustle and grind like everyone else. There is another way. Yes, you get to leverage your private sector so that you can stay ahead of everybody else, and you could be the authority that the government needs because you see things before they experience it, and then bring that value to them. Hands down, it will transform your life like it has many of our clients. So if you're interested in coming to real business, real contracts, if you are on the fence and you're like, I can't make a decision, I don't know what to do, come to the event. My job is to help you get clarity, whether it's contracts or not, but to get clarity on your business so that you can move, whether that's a prime, a sub, or anything in the mixture in the between. So I'll see you there and I'll see you tomorrow.